The silent preparations Supreme Commander Zareth stood on the bridge of the Crimson Sovereign, his primary eyes fixed on the blue planet ahead, while his secondary eyes monitored the tactical displays surrounding him. The flagship was a masterpiece of Crithian engineering, stretching nearly 8 kilometers in length with weapons capable of cracking continental plates. Behind it, 14,999 other warships maintained perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like silver scales against the black void of space. This was the largest military operation the Crithian Dominion had launched in 2 centuries, and Zareth intended to make it memorable. The Dominion had ruled over 500 star systems for more than 3,000 years. They had conquered species far more advanced than these humans. They had broken civilizations that had mastered technologies the Crithians themselves did not fully understand. Yet somehow they always prevailed. Superior numbers, overwhelming firepower, and absolute ruthlessness had carried them through every conflict. Zareth had personally overseen 43 planetary invasions in his career. Earth would be his 44th, and he expected it to be the easiest. Lieutenant Vex approached with a datapad, his scales shifting to a respectful pale blue. The young officer had been eager to prove himself throughout this campaign, constantly volunteering for additional duties and studying every piece of intelligence about the humans. Zareth appreciated such dedication, even if he found it somewhat unnecessary for such a simple conquest. Commander, the final reconnaissance sweep is complete. The humans have no significant orbital defenses. We detected approximately 200 satellites, a handful of space stations, and some mining operations on their moon and nearby planet they call Mars. No weapons platforms, no defense grids, nothing that could threaten even a single ship in our fleet. Zareth's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a Crithian smile. He had reviewed the intelligence reports dozens of times, and they all told the same story. Humanity was a young species that had barely ventured beyond their own planet. Their technology was crude, their military forces scattered and uncoordinated, their political structures fractured into hundreds of competing nations. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 30 years ago, and their first colony ship had just reached the nearest star system. By Crithian standards, they were infants playing with fire. What about their response to our demands? Etureth asked, already knowing the answer but wanting to hear it confirmed. Vex consulted his datapad. They refused, Commander. Their United Earth Council sent a message 3 days ago declining our terms. They claim Earth is sovereign territory and will not submit to Dominion rule. They requested we leave their system peacefully. Zareth's amusement grew. Requested, as if they had any leverage to make requests, as if their wishes mattered in the face of overwhelming force. The truth was that Zareth had hoped they would refuse. A peaceful surrender would have been boring, anticlimactic. He wanted the humans to resist, at least for a little while. He wanted them to understand the futility of opposing the Dominion before they finally broke and submitted. It made the victory sweeter, more satisfying. It reminded the rest of the galaxy why no one challenged Crithian authority. What Zareth did not know, what his sensors could not detect, was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for 150 years. It had begun with a simple radio signal, picked up by an array of telescopes pointed at the stars. The signal was artificial, clearly created by intelligent beings, and it changed everything. Humanity had spent centuries wondering if they were alone in the universe, and in a single moment, they had their answer. They were not alone, and the neighborhood was dangerous. The first signals humanity intercepted were not greetings or friendly messages. They were military communications, battle reports, conquest declarations. Humanity listened in horror as they learned about the Crithian Dominion and dozens of other aggressive empires that carved up the galaxy like predators, dividing prey. They heard transmissions from species begging for mercy, from civilizations that had been enslaved or exterminated, from survivors describing the brutality of galactic politics. The universe was not the peaceful place humanity had imagined. It was a war zone, and Earth was a defenseless target waiting to be noticed. The world governments had met in secret. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would not announce their presence. They would not send out greetings or attempt first contact. Instead, they would watch, learn, and prepare. Every nation on Earth contributed to what became known as the Phantom Protocol. Resources were redirected, scientists were recruited, and the greatest minds of humanity focused on a single goal: creating a defense system so advanced, so devastating, that no empire would dare attack Earth. Director Sarah Chen sat in the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Mars, her eyes scanning dozens of holographic displays that showed every corner of the solar system. She was 52 years old, though her appearance suggested someone younger thanks to the anti-aging treatments that had become common in recent decades. Her black hair was streaked with silver, pulled back in a practical bun that kept it away from her face. She had spent the last 20 years of her life working on the Phantom Protocol, rising through the ranks from a junior engineer to the director of the entire Mars Defense Command. Around her, 200 specialists worked at their stations, monitoring power levels, checking targeting systems, coordinating with other defense nodes scattered throughout the solar system. The command center was a marvel of human engineering, its walls lined with quantum processors that could calculate trajectories and fire solutions faster than any biological mind could comprehend. But for all its technology, the room was eerily quiet. Everyone understood what was about to happen. They had trained for this scenario thousands of times, but simulations were different from reality. Today, they would face an actual invasion force, and millions of lives depended on their success. "Status report," Chen said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of command. "VF Command." The senior tactical officer, Commander James Rodriguez, responded immediately. "All weapon systems are online and operating at full capacity. Quantum disruptors are charged and ready. Antimatter mines are in position throughout the belt and outer system. Drone factories on Luna and the Jovian moons have completed production. We have approximately 8 million autonomous combat units ready for deployment. The gravity net is active but currently in passive mode. All systems are green, Director." Chen nodded, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. 150 years of work had led to this moment. Humanity had built weapons that defied conventional physics, drawing on theories that most alien species had never discovered. They had hidden these weapons so carefully, so cleverly, that every scout ship, every probe, every sensor sweep had found nothing but primitive satellites and peaceful space stations. The Crithians thought they were attacking a helpless target. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Crithian fleet had been detected the moment it entered the solar system, crossing the heliopause 3 days ago. Chen had watched their approach with cold calculation, studying their formation, analyzing their tactics, identifying their command ship. The Crithians moved with the confidence of predators who had never encountered real resistance. Their ships remained in tight formation, their shields were set to standard strength rather than maximum, and their weapons were powered but not primed for immediate combat. They expected to intimidate Earth into surrender with their mere presence. Chen opened a communication channel to the other defense nodes. "This is Mars Command to all stations. The enemy has crossed Jupiter's orbit and is accelerating toward the inner system. Estimated time to Earth orbit is 6 hours. All personnel should prepare for combat operations. Remember your training. Trust your equipment. We have spent a century and a half building the most advanced defense network in known space. Today, we prove that humanity cannot be conquered." Acknowledgements came back from defense stations on Luna, Europa, Titan, and dozens of asteroid bases. Every station was ready. Every weapon was primed. Every soldier, technician, and commander understood their role. Humanity had united in a way that would have seemed impossible before the discovery of alien civilization. Old hatreds and ancient conflicts had been set aside in the face of a greater threat. Every nation, every culture, every person on Earth and throughout the solar system stood together. The Crithian fleet continued its approach, unaware of the trap closing around them. Zareth watched Earth grow larger on his displays, already planning the invasion strategy. His ground forces would land simultaneously on all major continents, targeting military installations and government centers. The humans would be given one final chance to surrender, and when they refused, the bombardment would begin. Precision strikes at first, destroying their capacity to resist while leaving their infrastructure mostly intact. The Dominion wanted workers, not ruins. Supreme Commander, we are receiving a transmission from Earth, Vex announced. Shall I display it? Zareth gestured his approval. A holographic image appeared, showing a human male in what appeared to be a military uniform. The human looked nervous, his face pale and his hands shaking slightly as he read from a prepared statement. This is General Marcus Thompson of the United Earth Defense Force. Ah, we have received your demands and must inform you that Earth cannot comply. However, we recognize the superior strength of your fleet. We request 24 hours to organize an orderly transition of authority. We wish to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Zareth's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. There it was, the beginning of the end. The humans were already breaking, already looking for ways to minimize their losses. He had seen this pattern dozens of times before. First, they refused out of pride. Then, when they saw the size of the invasion force, they tried to negotiate delays and compromises. Finally, they surrendered completely, hoping for mercy that rarely came. You may have 12 hours, Zareth responded. Prepare your world leaders to formally submit to Dominion authority. Any resistance will be met with total destruction. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Zareth turned to his tactical officers. Begin the orbital insertion sequence. I want all ships in position around the planet within 3 hours. Establish communications jamming. I do not want the humans coordinating any desperate last actions. We will begin the occupation the moment their surrender is formalized. What Zareth did not realize was that every word he had just spoken was exactly what Director Chen had wanted to hear. The Crithians were proceeding with predictable arrogance, following standard invasion protocols, positioning their ships exactly where humanity's weapons could inflict maximum damage. General Thompson's message had been carefully crafted to seem weak and desperate, to encourage the Crithians to drop their guard even further. The 12-hour delay was meaningless. The battle would be over in minutes. The Crithian fleet crossed the asteroid belt, passing within range of 300 antimatter mines disguised as unremarkable rocks. Chen watched their progress on her displays, her heart rate steady despite the tension in the command center. The fleet moved into the space between Mars and Earth, spreading out to surround the planet in a formation that would allow them to strike any target on the surface within seconds. Vurith was positioning his ships perfectly, creating a net of overwhelming firepower that would make resistance impossible. Distance to Earth orbit, Chen asked. 42 million kilometers in closing, Rodriguez responded. They will reach optimal firing range in 17 minutes. All Crithian vessels are now within the engagement zone. We can initiate combat operations at your command, Director. Director Chen allowed herself a cold smile. For 150 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. Countless resources, immeasurable effort, generations of scientists and engineers working toward a single goal. Now the Crithian Dominion would learn what it meant to threaten Earth. Supreme Commander Zareth stood confidently on his bridge, watching the blue planet fill his screens. In mere minutes, he would deliver his final ultimatum. The humans would surrender or be destroyed. Either outcome was acceptable. He had conquered 43 worlds, and Earth would join that list. His name would be recorded in Dominion history as the commander who brought humanity into the Empire. Zareth's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. He was looking forward to the easy victory, to the honors and accolades that would follow, to adding another trophy to his collection of conquered worlds. Director Sarah Chen took a deep breath and looked around the command center. Every eye was on her, waiting for the order that would change galactic history. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people going about their lives unaware of the fleet positioned above them. She thought about the future humanity deserved, free from tyranny and conquest. She thought about every species the Crithians had enslaved, every world they had destroyed, every civilization they had ground beneath their boots. All stations, this is Director Chen. Authorization code Sierra Delta 997. Initiate Phantom Protocol. Execute Order Thunderstrike. Show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Throughout the solar system, weapons that should not exist powered up and locked onto their targets. The trap was sprung. The Crithians had seconds to live, and they did not even know it yet. The annihilation, the first indication that something was catastrophically wrong, came from the Crithian science officer monitoring energy readings. Supreme Commander, I am detecting massive power spikes throughout the system. The readings are impossible. Nothing could generate this much energy without us detecting the sources earlier. Before Zareth could respond, his tactical displays erupted with warning signals. Thousands of new contacts appeared simultaneously, surrounding the entire fleet. Objects that had registered as asteroids, debris, and defunct satellites suddenly blazed with active power signatures. In the span of 2 heartbeats, the Crithian fleet went from predator to prey. The quantum disruptors fired first. These weapons operated on principles that most alien civilizations had never discovered, manipulating the fundamental forces that held matter together. They did not fire projectiles or energy beams. Instead, they created targeted quantum field disruptions that caused atomic bonds to simply cease functioning. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. 17 Crithian battlecruisers in the vanguard of the fleet experienced catastrophic molecular collapse. Their shields offered no protection because there was nothing to shield against. One moment the ships existed, the next they were clouds of disassociated atoms expanding into space. Shields up. Evasive maneuvers. All ships return fire. Zareth screamed the orders even as his mind struggled to comprehend what was happening. His sensors showed weapons firing from locations that should have been empty space. His tactical computer was identifying power signatures that exceeded anything in its database. The ship's AI was displaying error messages, unable to classify the attacks it was detecting. The Crimson Sovereign shuddered as something impacted its shields, and alarms blared throughout the bridge. Shield strength decreasing rapidly, Commander. Whatever is hitting us, it is bypassing our primary defense grid. We have lost contact with battle groups 3, 7, and 12. No response on any frequency. Director Chen watched the battle unfold on her displays with cold efficiency. The quantum disruptors were performing exactly as designed, each shot eliminating a Crithian warship before its crew even understood they were under attack. The antimatter mines hidden throughout the engagement zone were activating in coordinated waves, their detonations creating expanding spheres of annihilation that consumed everything they touched. 3,000 Crithian ships had ceased to exist in the first 90 seconds of combat, and the real assault had not even begun yet. Deploy the drone swarms, Chen ordered. Target their command ships first. I want their leadership eliminated before they can coordinate a response. Commander Rodriguez entered commands into his console, and across the solar system, manufacturing facilities built into Luna's dark side and hidden within the moons of Jupiter began releasing their deadly cargo. 8 million autonomous combat drones launched simultaneously, each one no larger than a human fist but packed with enough destructive power to cripple a capital ship. The drones accelerated to velocities that would have pulverized biological pilots, their AI-controlled systems calculating intercept courses and attack patterns with inhuman precision. They moved in coordinated swarms, thousands of units acting as a single organism with distributed intelligence. The Crithian point defense systems opened fire, tracking and destroying hundreds of drones every second, but for every drone eliminated, 10 more took its place. The swarms flowed through the defensive fire like water through a net, adapting their approach vectors in real time to minimize losses. Whew. Supreme Commander Zareth watched in horror as the swarms descended on his fleet. The small contacts moved with impossible speed and coordination, dodging point defense fire and swarming over Crithian vessels like insects. When they made contact with a ship's hull, they burrowed through the armor and detonated their payloads inside critical systems. Whew. Reactors exploded, life support failed, weapons arrays went offline. Ships that had survived for centuries of warfare were being torn apart by enemies they could barely see. Retreat! All ships prepare for emergency jump. Get us out of this system now. Zareth bellowed the order, abandoning any pretense of victory. Survival was the only priority now. The Dominion had never faced an enemy like this. Every tactical doctrine, every strategy that had served them for thousands of years was worthless against weapons they did not understand and could not counter. The only rational choice was to run, to escape and warn the Dominion never to return to this cursed system. But Director Chen had anticipated this response. She had studied Crithian tactics extensively, reviewed records of hundreds of their battles, and understood how they thought. The moment the fleet had entered the solar system, humanity's gravity net had activated in passive mode, creating invisible distortions in space-time around every potential jump point. The Crithians would not realize what had been done until they tried to activate their faster-than-light drives. Jump drives are not responding, the Crimson Sovereign's navigation officer reported, his voice thick with panic. Something is interfering with our ability to create stable wormholes. The spatial geometry is all wrong. It is as if reality itself has been altered. We are trapped. Those words hit Zareth like a physical blow. Trapped. The Crithian Dominion's greatest fleet, commanded by one of their most experienced officers, was trapped in an enemy system with no means of escape. The humans had not just prepared defenses. They had prepared a killing field, and the entire invasion force had walked straight into it. Activate gravity net to maximum intensity, Chen ordered. Collapse all potential escape vectors. I want absolute spatial lockdown. No Crithian ship leaves this system. The gravity net was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement, a network of generators that could manipulate space-time itself over vast distances. The technology had been derived from theoretical physics that most species never explored, building on Einstein's work in ways the famous scientist could never have imagined. When activated at full power, the net created gravitational anomalies that made faster-than-light travel impossible within the affected region. The antimatter mines began their second wave of detonations. These weapons were straightforward in concept, but devastating in execution. Each mine contained several kilograms of antimatter suspended in magnetic bottles, and when the containment fields collapsed, matter and antimatter annihilated each other in bursts of pure energy. The explosions were miniature suns, releasing more power in microseconds than some stars produced in years. Crithian shields that could withstand planetary bombardment were overwhelmed instantly, and the ships behind those shields vaporized. We have lost 60% of the fleet, Vex reported. His scales had turned a sickly gray color that indicated extreme stress. Communication with most battle groups has been severed. Our formations have completely broken down. Ships are attempting individual escape maneuvers, but the drones are hunting them down. Commander, we cannot win this battle. Zareth knew his lieutenant was right, but admitting defeat was almost impossible. He was Supreme Commander of the Crithian Dominion's invasion forces. He had conquered 43 worlds. He had never lost a battle, never retreated in disgrace. Pride would not save him now. Pride would not bring his ships back from oblivion. All remaining vessels, concentrate fire on the human homeworld. If we are going to die, we will take their planet with us. It was a last desperate gamble, an attempt to inflict enough damage that even in defeat, the Crithians could claim some measure of revenge. The surviving ships, now numbering less than 3,000 from the original 15,000, turned their weapons toward Earth and fired. Thousands of missiles streaked toward the blue planet, carrying enough destructive power to scorch continents and boil oceans. Director Chen had anticipated this as well. Activate the planetary shield, she said calmly. The orbital defense platforms surrounding Earth blazed to life, projecting interlocking energy fields that formed a sphere around the entire planet. The Crithian missiles struck the shield and detonated harmlessly, their fury absorbed and dissipated by technology the Crithians did not even know existed. Not a single weapon reached Earth's atmosphere. The planet remained untouched, serene, a blue jewel wrapped in an impenetrable barrier. Time to end this, Chen said quietly. All quantum disruptors continuous fire. Eliminate all remaining hostile vessels. No survivors. The order was cold, calculated, and absolute. Throughout the solar system, hundreds of weapon platforms unleashed their full power simultaneously. The quantum disruptors no longer fired in measured volleys, but in a continuous barrage that swept through the Crithian fleet like an invisible scythe. Ships disintegrated by the dozen, then by the hundred, their atomic structures unraveling under the relentless assault. Supreme Commander Zareth stood on the bridge of the Crimson Sovereign as his flagship began to fall apart around him. The lights flickered, gravity failed, and atmosphere vented through a dozen hull breaches. He could see the blue planet Earth on the main display, beautiful and untouched, despite everything his fleet had thrown at it. In his final moments, Zareth understood the terrible truth. Humanity had not been lucky. They had not won through superior numbers or unexpected technology. They had planned this. They had prepared for decades, perhaps centuries, specifically to counter an invasion like this. The Crithians had not attacked a primitive species. They had attacked a civilization that had studied them, understood them, and built weapons specifically designed to destroy them. The Crimson Sovereign came apart, its commander dying with the ship. All across the engagement zone, the last Crithian vessels were being systematically eliminated. 12 minutes had passed since Director Chen had given the order to initiate combat operations. 12 minutes to destroy the largest invasion fleet the Crithian Dominion had ever assembled. 12 minutes to change galactic history forever. Combat operations complete, Commander Rodriguez reported. All hostile vessels destroyed. 0 Crithian survivors detected. Damage to Earth Defense Force assets, minimal. Casualties among our forces, none. The solar system is secure, Director. Chen nodded, allowing herself a moment to feel the weight of what had just happened. 15,000 ships destroyed. Millions of Crithian soldiers dead. It was a massacre, absolute and total. But it was also necessary. Humanity had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. Open a broad spectrum transmission. Maximum power on all frequencies. I want every civilization within 100 light years to receive this, Chen ordered. When the communication systems confirmed they were ready, she began to speak. Her voice was calm, measured, and absolutely unyielding. This is Director Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You have just witnessed the complete destruction of a Crithian invasion fleet consisting of 15,000 warships. This fleet entered our solar system with hostile intent, demanding Earth's surrender and threatening our people with enslavement. We responded with overwhelming force. Chen paused, letting her words sink in across the vast distances of space. To all peaceful civilizations receiving this message, Earth extends friendship and cooperation. We are interested in trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense agreements. We believe the galaxy would be better served by cooperation rather than conquest. We welcome contact from any species that approaches us with respect and peaceful intentions. To all aggressive empires receiving this message, Earth is not a target. We are not weak. We are not defenseless. We have spent 150 years preparing for exactly this scenario. And any empire that attempts to invade our system will meet the same fate as the Crithians. We will show no mercy to invaders. We will use every weapon at our disposal, and you will not survive. The transmission continued with technical data about the battle, showing footage of the quantum disruptors in action, the antimatter detonations, the drone swarms, the gravity net. Chen wanted every civilization to understand exactly what had happened, to see the technology humanity commanded, to recognize the futility of attacking Earth. This is not a threat. This is a statement of fact. Earth will defend itself, with absolute resolve. We did not seek this conflict, but we ended it decisively. Learn from the Crithian example. Do not make their mistake. The transmission ended, broadcasting across multiple frequencies and in dozens of languages that humanity had decoded from intercepted alien communications. The message reached the Crithian homeworld 3 days later. Emperor Vorn received the news in his throne room, surrounded by advisors and generals who stood in shocked silence as they watched footage of their fleet's destruction. 15,000 ships, millions of soldiers, Supreme Commander Zareth himself, all gone in 12 minutes. The Emperor's scales turned ashen gray as he realized the implications. The Dominion had suffered its first major defeat in recorded history, and the defeat had been absolute. Across the galaxy, other civilizations received the transmission and reacted with a mixture of fear, relief, and calculation. Smaller species that had lived under the threat of Crithian conquest saw humanity as potential protectors or allies. Aggressive empires reconsidered their expansion plans, removing Earth from their target lists. Scientists across dozens of worlds began frantically studying the weapon technologies shown in the footage, trying to understand principles that seemed to violate known physics. Within weeks, ambassadors from 17 different civilizations arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, requesting peaceful contact. Director Chen met with each one personally, establishing diplomatic relations and beginning the complex process of integrating humanity into galactic society. Earth did not join the existing power structures. Instead, humanity created its own path, forming alliances with peaceful species and establishing itself as a protector of smaller civilizations that could not defend themselves against aggressive empires. The Crithian Dominion never recovered from the defeat. Emperor Vorn's authority crumbled as conquered species rebelled, sensing weakness. Within 5 years, the Dominion had fractured into dozens of independent states, some of which sought peace treaties with Earth. The galactic balance of power shifted dramatically, with humanity emerging as one of the major players despite being relative newcomers to interstellar politics. Director Sarah Chen stood in the Mars Command Center 3 months after the battle, looking at displays showing peaceful diplomatic exchanges, trade agreements being negotiated, and joint scientific projects being planned with alien partners. The Phantom Protocol had succeeded beyond her wildest expectations. Earth was safe, respected, and positioned to help shape a more peaceful galaxy. Commander Rodriguez approached with a status report. Director, the Council is requesting your presence on Earth. They want to discuss expanding our defensive perimeter and possibly establishing protection agreements with the Talaxian Federation Collective. Chen smiled. Months ago, she had been preparing to fight a desperate defensive battle. Now humanity was being asked to protect others, to extend its defensive umbrella over species that had suffered under aggressive empires for centuries. It was a responsibility she had not anticipated, but one she was willing to accept. Make the arrangements. And Rodriguez, begin preliminary designs for defensive stations that can be deployed in allied systems. If we are going to protect our friends, we need to do it properly. As Chen left the command center, she thought about the future. Humanity had proven it could not be conquered, but the real test would be what they did with that strength. Would they become another empire, imposing their will on weaker species? Or would they use their power to create a better, more just galaxy? She knew which path humanity would choose. They had spent 150 years preparing to defend themselves, not to conquer others. That fundamental principle would guide them forward. Earth had responded to invasion with total destruction, but they would respond to friendship with loyalty and cooperation. The galaxy would learn that humanity could be the best ally or the worst enemy, and the choice of which they encountered was entirely up to them. The blue planet turned slowly in space, its defensive system standing ready, its people united, its future secure. The Crithians had dared to invade Earth. They had been annihilated instantly, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson that battle had taught.